It is the weekend update edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. We will be with you here for the next couple of hours discussing sports from preps to pros. Well, I'm not necessarily sure that we got any preps today, so hold off on that. But of local, regional, national, and obviously international impact. So stick around. It's going to be fun. May not be quite as much fun as Wade's shirt, but fun nonetheless.
I should have busted this out on Wild and Wacky.
Yeah.
We've had the marine life going, and so yeah, you never know when a shark might pop up. So I snuck it in on everybody today.
It's not Sharknado week, is it?
I don't think so. And man, okay. I feel like we're due maybe for a big. I don't know when the last big Sharknado event. That was one of the wildest, kind of like old school Twitter phenomenons. It felt like just everybody was watching the movie when it came out, and I don't know. Yeah, maybe we could run it back on that. So,
big show again. It is Friday. It's the weekend. We'll be talking with Ben McKee from GoVols247.com in the second hour as we catch up on, some national championship baseball and the follow-up to that. Interesting move in professional baseball here in the last 24 hours involving one of those former volunteers. So we'll catch up with Ben on that and more. We will be talking in the next segment with Jeff Him, the radio play-by-play voice of the Nashville Sounds, getting caught up as they are in Gwinnett right now in the midst of a 6-game series down there. Also be talking some Braves and some other Major League Baseball. We'll be talking some NFL. We got our first preseason game officially done last night, almost done. They skipped the final quarter and some change, but they had their reasons, I guess. But again, injuries having their impact across the National Football League right now as well. And again, we will be talking Olympics, a lot going on in Paris, and we'll be touching on some of that as we go. So big show. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we made it to a Friday also. And I mean,
school small feat.
Yeah, no small feat. School started back at Giles County today, and I don't want to go full, old man mode, but man, it feels like they start earlier and earlier every year.
Gracious. August 2nd, they are in school.
Had a half day today.
That's brutal.
Reason. So yeah,
it is brutal.
They had their day, and then Giles County football team took their team photo this afternoon. Well, they did take their team photo. They didn't get to take it the way they wanted because we had a massive rainstorm that came in right around the time that was set to take place. So, yeah, everything is kind of falling in line, but it just feels weird. And the big thing, this is fun if you're in the Pulaski scene or you're friends with a lot of Pulaski folks on Facebook. Every year, Mo, maybe at Richland too, but predominantly at Giles County, the freshmen, it's like a rite of passage. They get their houses rolled and various levels of fun, hopefully always in good fun kind of decor. And so you wake up the next morning and everybody posts their photos like, well, I guess my son or daughter is officially a freshman now. So there were a lot of those littering the timeline today.
That's pretty wild. And I guess, in a town that size, you can do that because you know where everybody lives. That's pretty crazy.
Know where everybody lives. And the crazy thing, Mo, real quick, one of my best friends, he has a daughter that is now a senior and a daughter that just became a freshman. And so I asked, how did that play out? And somehow the older daughter the whole family avoided all that. So they were not as lucky last night. They got hit pretty good. And hopefully, I said, the seniors are the ones that do the rolling of the freshmen. And so I was like, hey, there wasn't a little, house divided type situation going on, but I was reassured that Senior Lily was fast asleep last night and didn't take part in any of those activities. That's what I was told, at least.
That's what you were told. There you go. That's what Lily told them. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Again, Got a fun show here. Looking forward to catching up with Jeff Ham in the next segment and talking a little Nashville Sounds. But right now, let's go ahead and get into it with yesterday's results and this weekend schedule on the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Before we get started, I want to remind you guys that the Friday Rundown is brought to you each and every single Friday by our friends at Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates. The Blue Raider Voice also wants to be your trusted advisor in real estate. So contact Chip at 615-542-1915 or visit his website at choosechip.net. That's Chip Walters, proud to support youth sports across Middle Tennessee.
Baseball action from Thursday night. The Braves with a happy outcome, doubling up the Miami Marlins 4-2 at Truist Park. The Sounds doubling up Gwinnett 2-1 down at Coolray Field in Lawrenceville. And again, in National Football League preseason play, the Bears in a game that was suspended late in the third quarter due to weather. The Bears with a 21-17 win over the Texans.
That brings us to today, where we have a couple of Major League Baseball scores, or schedule, I should say, and that'll take us into the weekend, where we have many more. But first, today's schedule, Marlins at the Braves tonight. Game will begin at 6:20 and can be seen on Bally Sports South. The Rays will be at the Astros this evening. 7:10 will be your first pitch time. That game can be seen on the MLB Network. Rays and Astros get underway earlier tomorrow, but not by much. They get underway at 6:15 on Fox. The Braves and the Marlins first pitch comes your way 5 minutes later at 6:20. That game will be seen on Bally Sports South. Taking us into Sunday now. Marlins and Braves will go start things off first at 12:35. Can be seen on Bally's. And then the Astros and the Rays will close it out. Local television, 1:10 p.m. is your first pitch for that Sunday game. A couple more baseball odds and ends. The Sounds are in action tonight, again, at Gwinnett. We'll talk to Jeff in just a moment. First pitch comes your way at 6:05. Tomorrow, first pitch at Gwinnett comes your way at 5:05. And then Sunday, they close it out at 12:05 p.m., just after noon, to wrap up that series at Gwinnett for the Sounds. That concludes our weekend schedule. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's rundown.
Today's top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check them out for their delicious daily deli lunch options available until 6 o'clock. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you our top story. And, we've been talking about the Olympic phenomenons that Snoop Dogg and Flavor Flav have become. Flavor Flav, the official hype man for the U.S. women's water polo team. Well, also, he has become a hero to Vanderbilt Olympian Veronica Fraley. Yesterday, the All-American discus thrower and NCAA champion commented on X on Twitter that she needed help paying her rent, and quickly got a response from Flavor Flav. I got you. Both Flav and Alexis Ohanian, who is the co-founder of Reddit. He's got a couple of bucks laying around. He's also the husband of Serena Williams. He's got a couple of bucks laying around. But they both came to her rescue, taking care of her rent, not just her immediate rent that was due today, but for the rest of the year. So Veronica getting a lift ahead of her Olympic involvement that starts today, actually. But she mentioned she alluded to the fact that her school pays about 75% of her rent, but the other 25 had not come through yet, thus the crisis, the panic on her part. While, quote, they pay football players who haven't won anything enough to buy new cars and houses. Now, if you're familiar
Man,
with
that cuts deep.
that does cut deep. And I mean, if you are familiar with Vanderbilt and Vanderbilt football, you do realize that the Commodores were 2-10 this past year. And again, Veronica set a school record in winning the NCAA discus title and again earned a spot on Team USA. Now, she did later come back and clarify, thanks for the supporting messages, but I want to clarify my irritation isn't with the school itself, mainly the rules that bar me from making the amount I'm worth as a collegiate athlete, such as NIL, which favors popularity over performance. That's all I'm saying.
Man, and if you're Vanderbilt, that's the cat's kind of out of the bag a little bit already, but that was a nice gesture on her end because the internet is swift and the internet is they're out for justice, and they had Vanderbilt dead in their crosshairs, it looked like, from what I was following on this story.
Without question they did, and they were coming hard and heavy. Yeah. Veronica started a GoFundMe page. She had a goal of $20,000. She reached more than half of that, over $12,000 she's raised. And obviously she appreciated the efforts of Mr. Flav and Mr. Ohanian. Apparently Alexis paid $7,700 for, Veronica's rent, again, getting that taken care of for the rest of the year, I guess. So she's in pretty good shape going into her competition here. And that's good. It's good that she doesn't have to worry about that.
Yep. Good that she doesn't have to worry about it, and kind of a nice heartwarming story, but I'm not going to lie. The Reddit angle for sure makes things a little better. But man, I was thinking, has Flavor Flav been to Nashville lately? I mean, how many bucks did he think he was finna have to shell out? Because it's pricey in downtown. So I'm glad that it worked out for everybody, because we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Him being involved with, getting kind of on board as the official hype man for the water polo team was a cool story. And so the fact that he's not only following up physically, but also following up financially is really cool to see in my mind.
Yeah, it's really nice to see him throwing his support behind these athletes. And, he said it with the women's water polo team. He said, some of these athletes work in 2 and 3 jobs and that kind of thing to be able to support their nation at the highest level. And they need our support. They deserve our support. And I'm going to give it to them, basically. And so, again, kudos to him. And, 20, 30 years ago, Wade, I don't think that the poster boys of the United States Olympic team, I think you would have gotten some pretty good odds on Flavor Flav and Snoop Dogg being that.
Yeah. Time heals all, and time mends a lot of fences, it sounds like, because, I don't even know we have to go back that far, but it certainly seems like the cultural crossover that we didn't necessarily know we needed, but we're glad we got, if that makes sense.
Snoop has just become a downright media darling, man.
For him, for sure. And in classic Snoop fashion, he's kind of making it look effortless, because he is kind of borderline like getting involved in there's a great SNL skit where they say you can't do everything, and he's kind of bordering that, but he's doing it so smooth in classic Snoop fashion that we're all on board with it, because that's why he's the man.
Yeah. They showed him in the Louvre in a feature on NBC either last night or the night before. I can't remember which, but again, they are just out and out celebrities. Showed a clip of Flavor Flav. Apparently, I don't know if he's classically trained, but Flavor Flav is quite the pianist. And he was somewhere in Paris playing the piano, and there's a clip of that out and about on social media, and it's quite impressive, I'd say. So, those guys are having fun representing the U.S., and I think other folks watching the Olympics and rooting for the U.S. are really having fun watching them do what they're doing. So it's great. It'll be, they're kind of setting the bar high, I think, for the 2028 games, which will be here. And I guess it'll be a lot easier for a lot more people to be involved, but I'll be interested to see what personalities, what celebrities we get tied in with those games in LA.
Oh, for sure. And it will be really a who's who, with it being here in the United States. That's what makes this crossover so cool is international folks. Snoop transcends countries, national borders, obviously, at this point in his career and his life. But that's the fun part of seeing the international flavor about him, if you will. And then in LA, yeah, you're expecting the heavy hitters, but to me, it'll be cool to see, but it won't be quite as cool because it's not every day you see Flavor Snoop just, casually walking in the streets of Paris. I mean, so that's kind of the neat part to me is the fact that they're going and have made a pretty good commitment, just in terms of a calendar demand to be over there. But you are exactly right, because when we're in LA, man, it will be, I mean, and to go back to the opening ceremonies, they had some really cool deals in terms of their musicians. Lady Gaga was there, but they also had a lot of local flavor. Can you imagine some of the acts that are going to be performing during the opening ceremonies when we host this bad boy in 4 years?
I tell you what, without getting into the controversy of the opening ceremonies, I think, speaking of bars being set, LA's got a lot to live up to for those. And the closing ceremonies here in Paris should be, given what they did to open it, those should be pretty nice as well. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And one thing is for sure, the U.S. knows how to party. The U.S. knows how to put on a show. And in 4 years, it will definitely be a show. And we're just kind of getting a little bit of a taste of that by some of our best being overseas right now.
As we talk about Snoop, Wade, have you seen his Olympic pin?
I don't think that I have.
That's a big thing amongst the athletes from the different countries, is exchanging their country's pins and that kind of thing. Well, he has one that I don't know if Mark's going to be able to find it on such short notice or not, but it is uniquely Snoop, we'll say.
Classic.
Mark,
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Any luck, Mark?
A headline that I see basically says, yeah, fans are begging to find a way to get this.
Mark, did you say something?
I think he's trying to track something down.
I think he's efforting.
I wouldn't mind laying eyes on this.
I can't believe you've not already seen it.
I haven't. Yeah. I do see a picture now of Snoop wearing a Coco Golf shirt. And he's holding his pin up now, but they haven't zoomed in yet. So
that's the pin. Smoke rings.
Oh, well, I mean, hey, that's as good as it gets right there from the DOGG, from the dog father himself.
There we go. If you can get your hands on one of those, you'll have something. Absolutely. Let's take our first break from the Lee Company Studios. When we come back here on Main Street Sports Today, we will be joined by the voice of the Nashville Sounds, Jeff Hem. Stay with us after this.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Weekend Update continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with the colorful Wade Neely, and we are now joined by the voice of the Nashville Sounds, Jeff Hem, coming to us from Coolray Field in Lawrenceville, Georgia, home of the Gwinnett Stripers 1P. Jeff, what's up?
How we doing, guys? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, man. Hey, you saw a pitcher's duel last night, huh?
Yeah, both of these teams, I feel like every year have good pitching, and last night was a lot of fun. Chad Patrick has been terrific for the entire year, and last night he did it again. He does what he does. He is a smart pitcher. He is an effective pitcher, and Gwinnett's got some guys who bothered the Sounds this year, including against Chad. When we were here a month and a half ago, even though he pitched well in his outing, the two guys, Braves prospects, Nacho Alvarez and Drake Baldwin, had gotten him in that game, and he got them last night and pitched well, got his 10th win of the year, and just a terrific outing, and went up against Ian Anderson, who not that long ago was winning World Series games for the Braves, and probably will be back up there at some point soon as he comes back from Tommy John surgery. So it was a fun matchup. Close, low-scoring game. It was 2-1 by the end of the fifth inning, and that became the final. It was a good ball game.
As Braves fans, we are hopeful that Ian Anderson is making his way back toward Atlanta. You know, as you mentioned, what did you see out of him yesterday?
Yeah, he looks sharp. You know, it's interesting. So the Sound starter tonight is a guy named Easton McGee, who is coming back from his own Tommy John surgery experience.
Isn't everybody?
Yeah, well, and it's one of the things I talked about with Easton. But one of the things I asked him was, where are you in this pendulum of now I'm just a pitcher, I'm no longer a rehabbing pitcher? And his answer was interesting. And McGee is, I don't know if he's quite as far along. Well, he's not quite as far along outings-wise as where Ian Anderson is. But he said something interesting that, like, once he's in the game, he feels like a pitcher, but once you're coming back from Tommy John surgery, there are some maintenance things that you do before and after your outings that you didn't do before your Tommy John surgery. So to bring that back to Ian Anderson, last night he looked fine. It wasn't like, oh, he only went 3 innings and you can tell the velocity's not back. I mean, stuff-wise, velocity-wise, Ian Anderson looked like he was where he was 2 years ago, since he only had the one outing last year before he went down. So in terms of how he looked, how he seemed, his velocity, it looked like the Ian Anderson that Braves fans would be used to seeing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all the other factors that go into a comeback are where the Braves feel it needs to be. His pitch count went into the low 80s. It's done that twice in a row now. So that's a box that's been checked by Ian. So, when does this happen for the Braves? I don't know, but he seems pretty far along in terms of a lot of the kind of landmarks along the way post Tommy John surgery that a guy would need to go through.
And, toward that, we're seeing more and more of the Tommy John situations and guys coming back from it and that kind of thing. It just kind of becomes part of the territory at this point, I guess, right?
It does. Who originated the line of you're either a pitcher who's recovered from Tommy John surgery or you're a pitcher who's going to have Tommy John surgery? Like, it just seems like a foregone conclusion in today's game that if you pitch long enough at a high level, you're going to have it. It's I don't know if that but if that stat is kept somewhere, it'd be interesting. Like, how many current big league pitchers have had a number? It seems like it would be a pretty high number. The nice thing is, I think if you're going to have it, that there is such a proven track record that you will probably be okay on the other side. Not for everybody. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. I remember it did for Chris Bassett when he was a Sound, still with Oakland. He's done well now, and he's off and having a great big league career. But he was one guy who it took a little bit longer for the stuff and the velocity to come back. But it feels like 9 times out of 10, guys come back on a pretty regular routine of what the timeline they tell you is going to be. And most of the time they throw a little bit harder. They usually at least throw as hard as they did before the surgery. A lot of times they throw even a little bit harder. So it does feel like it's an epidemic. And I think it is. And I think it has been for a long time. Did you guys read Jeff Passan's book, The Arm? It's been a few years now. Phenomenal read. And it basically, the bottom line of the book is it basically says that all 30 teams are trying to figure out, why is this so common? They all have their different theories and their different reasons, and there are a lot of factors that go into it. But at the end of the day, nobody really knows. And it's like, okay, is it the pitch count problem? Is it the workout? Is it between starts? Is it long toss? Is it short toss? Is it not enough weightlifting? Is it too much weightlifting? Nobody know. We all know these things factor in. Nobody really knows the answer. It was a really phenomenal read. It's been out a few years now, but it goes to your point, Mo, of like, does it seem like everybody's had it or will have it? Yes, it does. Do they know how to get to a point where that's not the case? No, they don't.
And it's got to be frustrating, I would think, for a pitcher. I mean, it's just kind of hanging over your head, I would think, to some degree.
I agree with that. I also think the encouraging part would be, and it's easy for me to say this because I'm not a professional pitcher and I haven't had to go through Tommy John surgery, but if you're going to go through it, I would think it would be comforting to know going in that the physician can show you this long list of pitchers who've gotten to the other side and have gotten better from it, or at least, continued their careers, versus other injuries that seem to kind of have to be maintained or dealt with forever. A back problem or a shoulder problem, or, my hamstring every now and then just barks at me again. Like, the Tommy John surgery has become a pretty known process that if you're going to be going through it, I would like to think you'd be comforted to know it'll probably work out okay compared to some other injuries that are a much greater unknown on the other side of that operation.
Jeff, we've talked a lot about pitchers already. And I want to ask one more question is, we had Chad on the show and he was great and telling us, kind of how the season has been going. And obviously it's been fantastic. I'm curious, in your mind, after covering the team and minor league baseball for so many years, what do you think the psyche is like for a guy who is putting up such kind of really, really eye-popping numbers at the AAA level? And are you kind of always looking over your shoulder saying, or waving, saying, hey, I'm down here, don't forget about me? Or kind of, what do you think the mental makeup of somebody that's having such a dominant season in minor league baseball is kind of at right now?
I think to have a dominant season in the minor leagues, especially at AAA, when you are this close to the big leagues, the key ingredient is to have the psyche that can kind of compartmentalize the fact that you truly can't control when you get called up. I think Chad must be pretty good at this in that regard, or it might have paralyzed his season at some point because of that. Like, hey, what more do I have to do? Why am I not up there? Because then it would bleed in, I think, to your outings or at bats if we're talking about a position player. I think the best AAA players are the ones who can lay the cards out on the table and find a way, whether they like it or not. Usually they're not going to like it, but they can find a way to be okay with acknowledging I'm doing my best and controlling what I can control. And that's, these organizations, I think, also put great resources around these guys, whether it's managers, coaches, mental skills coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, all the resources that are there to try to help them manage everything that comes with that. And I also think organizations are really good at being honest with players and saying, look, you are doing great. The reason that you're not in the big leagues is nothing to do with you. Hey, just right now, there's not a spot, or you're not on the 40-man roster, or they need to see if this happens, or they're waiting to see if this happens. Jeremy Accardo, Sounds pitching coach from the last few years, had a great line a couple of years ago when I think it was talking about Jansen Junk in a similar conversation. And Jeremy said, I like to remind guys that sometimes it's just not their time yet. And in other words, if Chad Patrick keeps going on this, eventually, somewhere along the way, whether it's the Brewers or one of the other 29 teams, you would like to think a shot will come. And stopping that or worrying about why it hasn't happened yet is just not going to do you any good. Now, I am sure that there are moments where Chad Patrick is no different than any other AAA player, where you do wonder, come on, man, like I'm crushing it down here. But I think that the best ones realize that they just have to find a way to keep going with their work and not obsess with it. Be interested in it and be passionate about it and ask the right questions and think about the right things. But at the end of the day, if you're in the middle of the game and you're thinking about why am I not in the big leagues, you're done. You're that for that night, you're not going to have a good night because you're just not. In the same way, hitters say, look, I try to make adjustments in batting practice. I try to think about this. I talked with my coach about this before the game. But then when I get in the box, if I am thinking about, all right, was my elbow in the right place on that last swing, you're toast. You just have to think about the pitcher and the ball and go hit. So I think the best ones at AAA know what to think about at the right time and what not to think about at the right time.
Jeff Ham, the voice of the Nashville Sounds, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And Jeff, you mentioned that it's not just the Milwaukee Brewers, when it comes right down to it, that Chad Patrick or whoever else is playing for, but for those other 29 teams as well. And we kind of saw that, in the reality of it earlier this week, as Joey Weimer was involved in the Frankie Montas trade that brought him over from Cincinnati. Weimer, part of a crowded outfield in Milwaukee, goes over to Cincinnati, which is pretty crowded as well. But I mean, trades happen and guys move, and sometimes your chance doesn't come in the organization that you come up in.
Yeah, and I think with the trades, you've got to give up something to get something, and so you lose a key guy like Weimer, who's got sky-high potential. But in order to get a solidified, experienced big league starter for a playoff chase, that was part of the price of doing business for the Brewers. You're right. I think they dealt from a position of strength. They had just recently put Brewer Hicklin on the 40-man roster down here. They've got a loaded outfield at the big league level. And even Tyler Black is playing some outfield more and more. Isaac Collins, who's not on the 40-man, has had a great year for the Sounds and is and can play the outfield. So I think the Brewers have a pretty good depth chart, and you're right. They had to part with a guy who's got a lot of talent, but that's what you have to do in order to get something in return. And I can think at this time last year, the Brewers went out and got outfielder Chris Roller, who is still with the Sounds this year. He was not getting a lot of playing time with Columbus for the Guardians, and the Brewers went out and wanted him and got him and found a way to make a deal to bring him in. To your point about, hey, if you had asked, I think, Roller at that time, did you expect, that just kind of out of nowhere you'd get acquired by another organization? It was after the trade deadline, where you still can trade for minor league non-40-man guys. The trade probably took him a little bit by surprise, but other teams are always paying attention. All 30 teams are paying attention to every single player. That's their job, is to literally every single day be aware of what's going on around the game, and they're asking themselves, can we make ourselves better in one way, shape, or form by doing anything today? And some days that is going out and bringing in a guy from the outside. So I think AAA guys are well served to remember that often, that even in this day and age where fewer scouts are literally in the stands, which is unfortunate, teams are paying attention as well as they ever have in other ways. And you never know when that opportunity is going to come. And all of a sudden you blink and 2 days later, you're in the big leagues with a totally different organization. And it happened 2 years ago with Lucas Erceg, AAA with the Sounds for the Brewers. 48 hours later, he was in Oakland A in the big leagues. Now he's with the Royals from a trade deadline acquisition, and he's on a playoff contender and an integral part of a deal for a contending team. And 2 years ago, deep down, he probably felt like he was languishing and not going to get a shot with the Brewers. And they did right by him, to the Brewers' credit. Oakland was willing to say, hey, we'll put him in the big leagues right now if you'll make a deal. And the Brewers said, well, we're not putting him in our big leagues. We'll do right by the player. I mean, that's an industry standard. That's how the Brewers got Dallas Keuchel earlier this year. He was with the Mariners at Tacoma, and by and large, teams will do right by the player. If another team reaches out saying, hey, your guy is not in the big leagues, we want him for our big league team, sometimes that other team will say, all right, we're gonna call him up too, so we don't lose him. Otherwise, they'll say, okay, let's find a way to make a deal. We'll do right by the player. I think organizations are really good at trying to do right by the player in those kind of circumstances. So it can happen very quickly for a guy at AAA in the dog days to all of a sudden be in the big leagues in a totally different organization 2 days later.
And you mentioned, Jeff, in as you are going through the why can't I get up, why can't I get the call, that kind of thing, that a lot of it just kind of hinges on, the major league team kind of being honest with guys. And it feels like to me, as I listen to you and listen to some of these guys that we've been fortunate enough to have on, it feels like the Brewers do maybe a better than average job of that honest, open communication with the guys.
Hard to say, just because I can only speak from experience of talking to these guys with the Brewers. I mean, I've been with the Sounds when we were a Rangers affiliate and with the A's, and I think in general those organizations did a lot of that too. So I would venture to say most organizations are good at that. Some I'm sure are better than others, but I do think most of them are pretty solid at putting the cards out on the table and saying, here's what you're doing and here's what we think about it. And here's why we like it. Here's what we don't like. Here's what can be improved. And I think I know from talking to the players, that's all they want to know is, if I'm not in the big leagues, why? And if it's something that I can control, I'm going to try to go change it. And if it's something that I can't, at least I know why. And they can sleep peacefully at night, head to pillow, understanding how they're being evaluated. And I do think the Brewers are really good at that because as the player, you don't always like what you're hearing. It's a hard truth to face sometimes, but at least you're getting the truth. And players want to know, if they're this close to the big leagues and they're not there, they want to know the answer to the why question. And I think more times than not, the team will at least answer that question for them.
The Sounds finish up their series at Gwinnett, as we mentioned in the rundown. They've got a 6:05 Central Time first pitch tonight, 5:05 tomorrow, 12:05 on Sunday, getaway day. Return to First Horizon Park on Tuesday for 6 with Indianapolis. 6:35 each night with the exception of Sunday's 6:05 start. So, Jeff, you get a little extra time at home next week.
I like the Sun. I like them both. I really do. I love a day game, but I also I like a little bit more leisurely Sunday morning for those Sunday night games. So I'm happy either way. Not that they care or they're asking my opinion, but I'm happy either way with either of those Sunday home game times. And look, it's an effort to try to beat the heat. Yes, it's still hot sometimes at 6:05, but if there's a little bit more shade and the heat index is lowered a little bit, it does make it more comfortable for everybody. So we're not doing as many Sunday night games as in years past, but still some. And next weekend will be another one. And I think we were going to have a nice crowd last Sunday before the game got rained out. So I do think fans in general like the Sunday evening games, but we've also had great crowds for some of those Sunday day games too. So I think fans seem to like the Sunday games no matter what time they're played at, which is a good thing.
And come on out, even though there will be no Paul Skeens for Indianapolis, because maybe that bodes a little bit better for the Sounds offense.
That's true. That's true. That is very true. And there'll be a couple of Nashville Elite Giants games next weekend too, as part of the 9 program. Looking forward to that with the cool throwbacks and the homage to some great players who need some more stories told about them.
Absolutely. Jeff Ham, the voice of the Nashville Sounds, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Jeff, we appreciate it and look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. When we come back to the Lee Company studios here on Main Street Sports Today, we'll be talking a little bit more baseball of the major league variety, so stay with us after the break.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
August 2nd, 1959, Bill Bruton tripled twice with the bases loaded, contributing to four-run rallies in the first and the sixth innings as the Milwaukee Braves defeated visiting St. Louis 11-5. Felix Mantilla added a 3-run homer in the fifth as the host banged out 12 hits to overcome 3 errors for the win. Lou Burdette went the distance, scattering 9 hits with a pair of strikeouts to pick up the victory. That was this day in Braves history. August 2nd, 1959 was a good day for the Braves. August 1st, 2024 was a good day for the Braves as they doubled up Miami 4-2. Charlie Morton started a little rough, first and second, 1 out, got out of it, and then Austin Riley and Matt Olson each went yard in the bottom of that inning, gave him 3 runs to work with, and from there, I wouldn't say he coasted, but he took care of business. Orlando Arcia added a home run for the Braves last night, extending his hit streak to 12 games, as a lot of folks had kind of left him for dead offensively. So good to see him getting restarted. The Braves now 5-1 over their last 6 games. They've outscored their opponents 31-14 over that stretch with 15 home runs, 5 by Matt Olson. So, you know, this team, I'm not ready to issue any Jock Peterson declarations or anything like that, but I will say they have cut the deficit in the National League Eastern Division to 6 games, the closest it's been in about a month and a half or maybe more. So I'm not saying Philadelphia needs to be careful, but as Satchel Paige once said, don't look back. Somebody might be gaining on you.
I mean, the Phillies are kind of floundering, kind of laying an egg a little bit. The Braves are not really just streaking, but they seem to be playing better. And, yeah, just little by little, that number kind of has been dwindling. And if we keep going this direction, you're going to blink, and one day – the Phillies will look over their shoulder and say, holy smokes.
How did they get here?
Exactly.
Where did they come from? Yeah. Phillies go to Seattle tonight. Braves continue their series against the Marlins at 6:20, as we mentioned. Valente Belozo, that's a name for you. 0-1 with a 4.50 ERA, getting the ball for the Marlins. Spencer Schwellenbach, 4-5 with a 4.06. And I'm going to just tell you, any year that there's not a Paul Skeens, there might be some Rookie of the Year talk around this kid. Now, again, Paul Skeens renders all other Rookie of the Year talk obsolete, but you know, take a look at what this kid has done, particularly over his last 3 or 4 starts. I mean, he early on when he first came up, it was one bad inning that was doing him in, and that's how that ERA really got out of whack. But he has really whittled that down here over his last few starts, and you know, 4.06 is really respectable, especially for a rookie.
Yeah, he's worthy of an honorable mention, and I was just for fun. I did peruse. You have to currently wager $6,000 to win 100 on Mr. Skeens. He's minus 6,000, so it seems like it's a runaway. But yeah, you're right. And we see this, you know, in any sport. Really, there are these candidates sometimes for Rookie of the Year, and you got 2 or 3 really good athletes behind them that probably would win that or be certainly, a runner-up or third place in any other year, but just kind of the way the calendar fell, it hasn't worked out in their favor.
Schwellenbach, in 4 starts in July, worked 6+ innings each, gave up 1 earned run or less in 3 of those. You'll take that, because I'm sure that Charlie Morton probably can't say the same thing. But anyway, nice little revelation Mr. Schwellenbach has been for the Braves. Unfortunately, they've really kind of needed it with the rotation being what it's been. But hopefully.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Some of those numbers could potentially be better if maybe you slide back a spot instead of being kind of where you're at out of necessity in some regards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, Anderson hopefully getting closer. AJ Smith-Shawver probably getting a little closer. Rumor has it that Max Fried may actually start this weekend against Miami. So maybe the pitching is picking up a little bit. We shall see. Your newest pitcher, Yusei Kikuchi, takes the mound tonight against Tampa Bay.
Be nice to see him get off to a great start because they really gave up a lot to get this guy. And, I'm not saying they're going to, ready to be running him out of town or anything, but man, it would be nice just to set the vibes right to get things started for your Astros.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is, I know you gave up a lot for me, but this is what I'm going to give you. Yeah, it would be nice if he kind of came in and announced his presence with authority to some degree as far as that goes. Shane Baez going for the Rays in this 7-10 start tonight. Baez 0-1 with a 3.66 ERA. Kikuchi at Toronto was 4-9 with a 4.75. Again, respectable ERA all in all, but that 4-9, and that might be as much a function of a lack of support as anything else, because Toronto's in that ultra tough AL East, and so runs aren't always easy to come by.
No, and Vlad Guerrero stayed put, right? He didn't get shipped out anywhere. That was kind of another hot bat that might get dealt. We talked about some of the guys that didn't get traded the other day, and yeah, Toronto, man, they I know they had some big aspirations, and they kind of definitely have underperformed, but you can't underperform. That's the one division you definitely can't underperform in, as we've seen this year.
No, you cannot. It's sort of like the SEC. They don't wait on you. It's one of those get better or get beat kind of things. Speaking of, Wade, we talked about the White Sox yesterday, and the question came up. Well, it wasn't so much a question as an assertion. Somebody's got to lose a job, right? Well, there's an article on the Sporting News, on sportingnews.com. Notable White Sox reporter predicts managerial change is forthcoming. Apparently, Jesse Rogers of ESPN expects by Monday Pedro Grifol will be former White Sox manager Pedro Grifol. So, and this team finished 4th in the American League Central last year, and they weren't great. They went 61-101, and it's kind of amazing that they were 61-101 and they were only 4th. But they are not going to be 61-101 this time. They are 27-84 right now. They have lost 17 straight, breaking the franchise record of 14 straight losses that was set in June.
I mean, yeah, we've kind of reached the point. I've been watching definitely not MLB Network, but really even much, the ESPN and things of that nature. We're basically at the point where you start seeing the graphics. When the graphics start showing up, where they give the frame of reference about how bad we're talking. We mentioned the odds on the betting websites yesterday. I mean, that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. But when you start seeing stuff on TV, like it's been this many days, or, back when the White Sox won, this was the #1 box office movie. I mean, we're really kind of getting into some wild and scary stuff when you're talking about this level of ineptitude. And man, it's tough. Christopher Gabriel, where you at?
Oh goodness, he's keeping his head down. Don't hide the sharp objects from CG for sure. We talked about that 1962 Mets team that went 40 and 120. Well, the White Sox are on pace to lose 123, and they open a series tonight at Minnesota, which, as we mentioned yesterday, doesn't do them any favors. So, good luck if you are a Chicago White Sox fan right now. Good luck also if you are a Los Angeles Angels fan right now.
Oof.
I asked this a couple weeks ago, and it probably sounded a little provocative or blasphemous or whatever else. Is Mike Trout a Hall of Famer? And I rev that back up because Mike Trout is done for the year. He has suffered a second meniscus tear. He went to AAA Salt Lake to start on a rehab assignment, and that rehab assignment was cut short due to soreness in the knee that he had just had repaired. And apparently at some point he tore the meniscus that had been repaired yet again. Same knee. So, and here's the thing. Since the start of the 2021 season, Trout has played in 266 of 648 games, or 648 possible games. Of the Angels' 648 games, he has played in 266 of them. And over this past 4 years, he's only played in 41 games after the All-Star break.
Those are some ugly numbers in terms of availability, which you just described there.
And I think that's the thing that really jumps out at me is the availability. I mean, when he's been in there, he's been nails, man. I mean, he is one of the greatest players in the game when he plays.
And that's been a big if lately. And, I think the interesting thing, obviously, the next several years of his career will really kind of either bend this narrative one way or the other.
Which is kind of nebulous in and of itself.
Right. And that's where I was going with that, because I think we've kind of maybe officially taken him off the quote automatic Hall of Famer pedestal. And now he's like right at the very tippy top of, yeah, but we'll have to think about it. And then
we got to see.
Depending on how this goes, he reserves the right to re-enter that automatic realm or potentially slide further down and really have folks asking some questions, because, yeah, it has not been an impressive run in terms of games played lately.
And through no fault of his. I mean, it's really unfortunate.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And it happens. We're talking years and years down the road, but I mean, Joel Embiid is the first guy I'm thinking of in terms of the NBA parallel, because this is a guy that when he's at his best is the MVP of the league, but man, he's missed a lot of games. And I'm wondering, baseball too, does playoff criteria have anything to do with the baseball eligibility or no?
I don't know that it has anything to do with eligibility per se. I mean, it may figure
maybe,
into folks' perceptions, that kind of thing. I don't know that they have anything hard and fast as far as that goes.
Or I guess, yeah,
whatever your perception is, but yeah.
I guess because I was wondering, our playoff stats to be ignored, I guess is what I should have said, because the other knock is potentially, that was the initial knock on this guy was, man, he just hadn't been able to do it, or we haven't been able to see him do it in the postseason. And I was curious how much that potentially plays a role, if at all. But now the injury situation just makes it, that's almost an objective argument at that point. You're talking about if the guy's not available, I don't know how you can put him in potentially if it continues down this path.
Yeah, it's a tough combination because the Angels have not necessarily been great. So they've not necessarily had the postseason opportunities for him to shine on that stage. And then he's not been able to play for health reasons. So it's almost a double whammy.
And, the other angle with him too, especially is, not exactly the most marketable guy, despite the fact playing in LA, kind of a quiet guy that doesn't really move the needle a ton outside of just which speaks to his level of play. The fact that he's moved the needle so much purely on his level of play is impressive. Mm-hmm. But you also kind of wonder, if he had a touch more charisma or a touch more personality, would that potentially play a role in this hypothetical as well?
Right. You hate to see it. I really do. And I particularly hate to see it from the standpoint that the manager, Ron Washington, when he took that position this offseason, I was very skeptical of what they were going to be able to put on the field for him. And this hasn't helped. So our number one of the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, closes as we go to this break. When we come back to the Lee Company studios, we'll be joined by Ben McKee of GoVols247.com, talking a little UT stuff. Stay tuned.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Two of the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts now. I'm Maurice Patton, joined by Wade Neely, and we're in the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. Joining us from his mobile studio is Ben McKee of GoVols247.com. Ben, what's happening?
Just got off the golf course. So
tough day.
Oh, okay.
It's always a tough day when I'm on the golf course. There's no doubt about that. Appreciate y'all having me on as always. Always enjoy speaking with you all, and do want to apologize for the last time you tried to have me on. I got caught up in my fatherly duties when the kids got home from daycare. So sorry I ghosted y'all, but happy to see y'all again.
Hey man,
man.
Never apologize for getting caught up in fatherly duties, man. Hashtag priorities. We get it, but appreciate you making yourself available. How'd it go out there, first of all?
It's never great for me on the golf course. But I will say, although it was a tough day, I did birdie 18. Made me want to play 18 more, which is a good thing that I can't play 18 more because those 18 would not have gone well. But I did birdie 18, and we'll leave it at that.
You know, that's typically my experience when I have played. You get that one shot that makes you think, oh, I got it now. Yeah, right.
Yep. I was good off the tee box. My iron shot was good. I was on the green in 3, and I was able to sink the putt. But prior to that, it was not fun. It got rained on a little bit, but it is what it is, I guess.
As my son was telling my stepson earlier this week, it's not the most strokes that wins; it's the least strokes. Keep that in mind. So
I like that.
Just remember, when we wanted to get you on the last time, it was, kind of coming out of the draft, because obviously the talent that UT lost in the Major League Baseball draft was kind of historic in the way those guys went. But also, when you're signing the type guys in the recruiting process that Tony Vitello has signed, you kind of find yourself under the gun a little bit, kind of sweating the draft out as to whether those guys are going to get to campus or not in a lot of instances. And it sounds like, Ben, from everything I've heard, Tennessee came out pretty well along those lines.
Yeah, they did. They did lose a handful of guys. Ty Southseen, he was drafted in the 4th round by the Cubs. He was a big-time infield prospect out of Nevada, top 50 overall player, would have been an instant impact type of guy. Trey Snyder went, I think, later in the 4th round, if I remember correctly, to the New York Mets. And his slot value was, I want to say it was around $480,000, and he ended up signing for 1.3. So he nearly tripled what was recommended as the signing bonus, the value for that pick.
So Tony helped him pack, right?
Yes. Yes. There's no doubt. When you get triple what Major League Baseball says your pick is worth, you sign on the dotted line, especially early in the draft. So, and that's the thing to remember. A lot of fans are kind of learning about the MLB draft. It's not, they don't necessarily draft in terms of overall ability from 1 to whatever. They're drafted in terms of signability, and these players are agreeing to numbers prior to the pick being announced. So if, like, there were several high school signees for Tennessee that had high numbers in the draft because they were content with coming to school, developing, and potentially being a first round pick here in a couple of years and signing for more money. So they have a high number set going into the draft. And if a team is willing to meet that high number, then they're most likely going to sign. If they're not, then they're not going to sign. And that's why you see a guy like Anson Siebert, who is Tennessee's top ranked signee in its class that is ranked number 1 overall by Perfect Game. He was drafted in the 16th round, but he's not a 16th round talent. He's a first round talent, even out of high school, second, third round at minimum. But teams weren't willing to meet his asking price. Same thing with Tegan Coons, who was one of Tennessee's top high school signees, big time right-handed arm out of Pennsylvania. Teams weren't willing to meet his asking price, so he wasn't drafted. They didn't draft on ability. They drafted on signability. Christian Moore went number 8 to the Angels overall because he was willing to sign for less than what the number 8 overall pick was valued at in the draft. So when Ty Southasine and Trey Snyder, they're drafted in the 4th round by the Cubs and the Mets, teams are willing to meet their asking price. And when you're willing to meet your asking price, you go ahead and sign. Just because nothing's guaranteed. Theoretically, they can come to school and they could be a first round pick one day, but you never know about injuries. You never know about whatever may pop up. So those were the two big ones that hurt Tennessee. You did have Lucas Ramirez drafted by the Tigers later in the draft. He's the son of Manny Ramirez, and obviously Manny Ramirez is not hurting for money. So no surprise for Lucas Ramirez, his son, to go ahead and sign. Although I'll be honest, I was surprised. I didn't think he was going to be drafted, to be honest. There's some swing and miss in his swing. Now, when he gets a hold of the baseball, it goes a long way. It's just like his dad. But there was a thought process there that maybe he was ranked a little bit too high because of his last name. But ultimately, he ends up signing with the Tigers. And then you had Ethan Wagner, an outfielder from South Carolina, who signed with the Astros after being drafted. He has an older brother that was drafted earlier a couple of years ago by the Dodgers, and he went ahead and signed. So my assumption is that they were just kind of ready to move on to pro baseball. So those two guys were a little bit surprising. But to get Anson Siebert to campus, to get Tegan Coons, Arnold Abernathy, who is the cousin of former Tennessee safety Micah Abernathy there in the Atlanta area. Manny Marine there from Florida, who was the Team USA starting shortstop. Levi Clark, a catcher from Georgia, who is one of the highest ranked guys in his class, regardless of position. It was much more good than bad. When you have the number 1 overall recruiting class, you're going to lose a couple of guys, but they had more guys make it to campus than not, and that's a win any way you slice it. I guess the one loss that maybe does hurt you is Eric Radicek. He was a Niagara transfer who was probably going to slot in at first base. And for him, he's an older guy. If he was going to get drafted, then he was going to go ahead and go. It was more of, would he earn a pro opportunity? And Tennessee was kind of his backup plan if he didn't. And the Marlins went ahead and decided him to draft pretty earlier than most expected. I spoke with some people that didn't think he was going to get drafted because of his age. So that one did sting Tennessee a little bit. But for the most part, when you only lose 3 guys who could have had an immediate impact on next year's team, to me, that's a win all day long.
Absolutely. And Ben, I wanted to ask you maybe a little bit more bigger picture question. Every single year, we've seen it in all sports. The best team doesn't always win. But I'm curious, after winning the national championship and producing the level of MLB talent that we've seen from Tennessee these last couple of years, is Tennessee scratching the surface of what they're capable of in terms of assembling even more talent in your mind? And again, I know that doesn't mean they're going to win it every single year, but do you think Tony V and that program can really ascend to an even higher level in terms of just overall talent?
I think so. And it's a bit of a hard question to answer because baseball recruiting is really weird. These high school players, they commit when they're in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, very young, more often than not. I do feel like over the last couple of years, guys are waiting until they get older to commit, or maybe it's just a byproduct of they commit early. Like Dean Curley was committed to USC as a pitcher, as a youngster in high school, and then ultimately flipped to Tennessee, I believe because of a coaching change, if I'm not mistaken. And he was obviously terrific at the shortstop this past year. But I do feel like maybe it's becoming more and more like basketball and football the last couple of years to where they do wait until they're older. But for the most part, guys wait until they're younger and or do commit when they're younger. And think about it. Tennessee has the number one overall class according to Perfect Game. These guys committed before they won a national championship.
Yeah.
And you were getting Drew Gilbert, Jordan Beck, guys like that to commit, and those were guys that were highly ranked prospects. Tennessee did benefit from Gilbert in a coaching change at Oregon State. He was committed to Oregon State until a coaching change, and then when something happened and he backed out of his NIL, he ended up committing to Tennessee. The Red Sox drafted Jordan Beck in the 14th round a couple of years ago, and he elected to come to school and with the thought that he would be a first round pick, which he ended up being, and he earns more money because of that. So they did get lucky with a couple of guys, and their player development is terrific. But they've been signing some of the top classes in the country before they won a national championship. So what's it going to look like now that they won a national championship and they were getting those guys to commit before they had the facilities, before Tennessee baseball is what it is now and had the brand recognition that it has now? I think they're just going to continue to compile those top ranked classes in the country. They're not going to be number one every year. But even when you look ahead to the 2025 class, the 26 class, they're number two, they're number one again, they're number three. I think they're just going to consistently be in those top five rankings. And I think where you see the biggest positive effect is on the transfer market. They've done well in the portal for several years now with Chase Dolander and others. But now you get Andrew Fisher and Liam Doyle, who are basically a tandem coming out of the portal, and they feel comfortable with coming to Tennessee. So it's a great question. But it's kind of weird to answer because they've been getting
Yeah.
the number one overall class and the best prospects and best transfers in the country without the resources. And that's what my dear friend Jason Swain has been saying for years now, that there's not a better recruiter in the country than Tony Vitello and his staff, because they've been recruiting at this level without the resources. Now they have the resources, and I just think that will mean that it further cements that they continue to produce on the recruiting trail that the way that they have.
Without the resources and without the success, and now they got both.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's got to be a scary combination. And I mean, you look at for opposing teams, obviously, and you look at what Tony Vitello has done with the recruiting staff, or not the recruiting staff, but the coaching staff this offseason. You lose Richard Jackson, who was a former Tennessee pitcher and then joined on the staff. He elected to pursue professional opportunities outside of baseball, and you replace him with Ross Kivett, who was on the staff initially with Tennessee, who is, to me, like Josh Elander 2.0, Josh Elander Jr. And I don't say that to diminish what Ross Kivett is. He's his own person, right? But I say that in the sense of giving people an idea of who Ross Kivett is. He's an elite recruiter. He's a great developer. He's a young guy with a lot of passion, a lot of energy. You're already recruiting at the level that you are, and here comes Ross Kivett, who is a young, great recruiter who has a lot of ties throughout the country because he was a great former player himself. And then on top of that, you lose Chad Zerker, the director of baseball operations. That's a big loss. Chad is loved by anybody and everybody he has ever met in the Knoxville community within the baseball program. And Tony goes out and gets Josh Reynolds, the Cincinnati pitching coach, to replace him, and he's going to fulfill some of those responsibilities and also help Frank Anderson on the pitching side. And then you go get Ricky Martinez, the former Tennessee shortstop, who was away from the program this past year working at New Mexico State. He's a young, vibrant young man who has a lot of energy, who has a lot of tools to kind of be the next Ross Kivett, the next Josh Elander. So they've already won a national championship, and they're already bringing in the number one recruiting class. They're raking up in the transfer portal, and somehow Tony has gotten better with his coaching staff. The Tennessee coaching staff has gotten better in a lot of ways, and it's just kind of mind-blowing. I'm not going to sit here and say that Tony will definitively go on a stretch in which it's kind of like a dynasty, but with the talent and the coaching that they have and the resources that they have, it's kind of it's hard not to think that they're going to get another national championship, if not multiple, at some point.
And that's kind of where I was going. Is it just dawned on me? I was basically wondering, do the Vols basically turn into an overnight blue blood almost in some regards? Because it seems like they sure have got a lot of things working in their favor, like you and Mo both have said.
Yeah, I mean it's much easier said than done, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel bold saying it, and I do say it with respect to how difficult it is to win at such a high level. I mean, Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt, they've been the standard of college baseball for so long, and Tim's got what, two, and over. Oh, he won one around 14, 15, and then 19, if I'm not mistaken.
14 and 19.
Right, and he's been the standard, and he only has two in a decade plus. So I say that with respect to the difficulty that it is to go win a national championship, but they certainly have the pieces, and I know maybe some people outside of Knoxville would take issue with me saying it, but I've always felt that Tennessee baseball was a bit of a sleeping giant. I'm not saying that they all of a sudden are LSU or other programs like LSU, but Nashville, as you all know, the mid-state has a lot of talent at the high school level in baseball, and they have benefited from it the 7-8 years that Tony has been at Tennessee, and it's only continued to get better as Nashville has grown, as the mid-state has grown over those 7 to 8 years. All it took was the university itself committing the resources necessary to the program to take advantage of. It's no different than football. The Carolinas have a lot of baseball talent. The Atlanta area has a lot of baseball talent. Alabama, Mississippi has a lot of talent. They've benefited from West Tennessee and in the Memphis area, and certainly the mid-state, as I mentioned. So I'm not willing to say that they are a blue blood just yet, but I will be bold, and although I respect how difficult it is to win a championship, I think Tony Vitello is somebody that should spend his entire head coaching career at Tennessee. And I think when it's all said and done, like I do think that after Tony Vitello moves on, after what should be 20 to 30 years as Tennessee's head coach, because he's so young, Tennessee should be viewed as a blue blood because of what they're doing now and the resources that are being committed to the program.
Ben McKee of GoVols247.com joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And Ben, you mentioned the recruiting job that Vitello and his staff are doing and are continuing to do. And as recent as yesterday, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, Lawrence County left-handed hitter, I think he's an outfielder, first baseman, Alex Bedford, is a 2025 recruit, and he committed yesterday to Tennessee. So he will be there in the next fall for the 26th season. And this is another kid that, another mid-state kid, like you said, kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but had some eyes on him at the right time, and next thing you know, he is a Vol. So how familiar are you with Bedford, if at all?
I'm not very familiar, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I did see where he committed, but if Tennessee has a good track record of taking mid-state natives that kind of flew under the radar, and they get them to campus, and they develop them, and then all of a sudden they're Jake Rucker, they're Drew Beam, they're Kavaris Tears, and we could go on for a long time talking about Tennessee baseball players that were from the mid-state that Tennessee was able to get drafted, quite frankly, and put in pro ball. So I did see where he committed. I'm not too familiar with his game. Fall camp started this week, so that's been the priority, if I'm being completely honest. But how can you not trust Frank Anderson and his evaluation, Tony Vitello, Josh Elander, their evaluations, and it doesn't stop. I've had a couple of conversations with those in the program, like, hey, the fall semester starts here soon. Are y'all going to be able to get away and enjoy a brief vacation, a brief time out? And no, it's not happening.
Never
I
stops.
joke, no, not at all. They've been on the recruiting trail to start the month of August, and will continue to be on the recruiting trail and they're reaping the benefits. They've racked up a couple of commitments the last couple of weeks because of that. That there is no complacency with this staff. They are not content with winning a national championship. They want multiple. They want to go back to back, and this is how you do it by racking up the talent. I joked with Tony Vitello in the tunnel of Omaha walking off the field. I said, what recruiting flight do you have booked first thing in the morning? And he joked that, okay, I don't have one tomorrow morning, but
Right.
he was already itching like an addict trying to get their fix to get back on the recruiting trail and find some more talent. And they've been nothing but on the recruiting trail since the season ended. There's been no level of complacency. They went to the parade in downtown Knoxville right after the season ended, and then after that parade ended, they attacked the transfer portal and they attacked the high school ranks. There's been a lot of travel ball, AAU stuff going on throughout the country that they've attacked, and like the commitment that you mentioned, that they've benefited from that a ton. So forgive me, I don't know a ton about him personally. I did see where he announced, but simply put, how could you not trust the evaluation of Tennessee's coaching staff right now?
Absolutely. You mentioned Christian Moore, the number 8 pick overall by the Los Angeles Angels. Christian Moore is a Rocket City trash panda. He is with the Madison, Alabama, don't call him Huntsville, double A affiliate in the Southern League as of earlier this morning, I guess. Played 2 games, and that was all the Angels needed to see to get him to double A, apparently.
Yeah, and I saw that game 1 on Wednesday night, and he starts off with a single and I think a bases clearing double, and I saw that on night 1 on Wednesday and thought, okay, he's not going to be at single A very very long. All the different A's in minor league baseball kind of tripped me up. I don't know if it's single
Mhm.
A or high A, but he was in San Bernardino there in
Mhm.
California. It was cool to see the Burks post on social media that they went out there, drove up to see him in his professional opportunity. Burke and Blake Burke and Christian Moore are thick as thieves, real good friends. So that was a really cool thing to see, the Burks going and traveling to see Simo in his first professional opportunity. But when I saw that, I was like, there's no way he lasts that single A, high A very long. And then he follows it up with I think another double and his first professional home run. And I said, oh, it's just a matter of time before he's called up to double A, which I'm excited about. I went to high school my junior and senior year there in the Huntsville area. I went to Buckhorn, which is technically in Newmarket, and
Mhm.
graduated from Buckhorn. My parents still live in Huntsville. I was in Huntsville the past 2 weekends for, unfortunately, a funeral. And then also my oldest, Knox, he turned 2. We had his birthday party last weekend. And so I'm excited because I'm going to make an effort to go see Simo play there with the Trash Pandas. I think he's coming to Chattanooga to face the Lookouts here in the next week or so. And I think I'm going to make my way down to Chattanooga and catch him out. So very excited for Christian. He's a very good young man. I enjoyed covering him for 3 years and interacting with him. Very curious to see. I think he'll do well at the Double A level. So very curious to see how long it takes before he's up at the major league level. The Angels the last couple of years have been notorious for running guys through the minor league system
Mhm.
rather quickly.
Mhm.
You've seen it with Zach Neto. You've seen it with Tennessee's own Ben
Ben
Joyce, who is,
Joyce.
man, Ben Joyce is tearing it up right now. I mean, he's sitting
Yeah.
10, 102, 104 right now, and I think it's 23.1 consecutive scoreless innings at the big league level. He's been so much fun to watch, and that's another great dude that's come through the Tennessee baseball program. Tennessee baseball gets a bad rap, and I get it from the outsider's perspective. They've done some things that rub people the wrong way. I get it. They've done some things that if Knox and my youngest Jalen, if they're playing baseball, then I would coach them up and say, hey, let's not do that. So I get it, but they've brought in a ton of great people over the years, and they really are. They're just super competitive and very emotional in that competitive state, and it bleeds over a little too much at times. But Simo is cut from a good cloth, and I'm excited to follow him at the next level, and going to make an effort to go see him play. It'd be cool to see him in Rocket City. I was actually the bat boy for the Huntsville Stars when I was in high school, before they moved to Biloxi and became the Biloxi Shuckers, and then eventually Huntsville got a new stadium there in Madison. Don't confuse them with Huntsville, like you
Yep.
said.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's cool. The new stadium is nice. I haven't been to it, but I drive by it all the time. maybe I can catch Simo in a game there for the first time, but at least excited to see him here in Chattanooga, and going to make an effort to go see him in Chattanooga, like I said, because with the way the Angels move guys through their organization, there's no telling how long he's going to be with the Trash Panda. So if anybody out there is listening and they kind of saw that today and said, okay, I need to go see Christian play, go do it soon, because there's no guarantee that he'll even be with the Trash Pandas next week. I'm excited for him and excited to go see him play.
I'm intrigued. You said you went to Buckhorn. Was Kyle right there when you were there?
Yep, Kyle's a good friend of mine. We played baseball together. His dad, Roger Wright, was my baseball coach my junior and senior year, and Kyle and I are good friends. I saw Kyle. My Yankees happen to be in Kansas City, which is who he's playing with now, a couple days before Omaha. So I was able to fly into Omaha a day early, catch the Yankees Royals. Kyle hooked me up with tickets and got to see Kyle on the field. So he's rehabbing well from shoulder surgery. Excited to see him back out on the mound next year. So yeah, Kyle was there when I was there. I was a grade ahead of him. I graduated in 13. He graduated in 14, but he was in my wife's friend group. So Kyle's a good friend of mine. Great dude.
Okay. Was David O'Connor the football coach when you were there?
Ooh, I'm blanking on the football coach, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Just curious. He was at Giles County before he went down there. He's back at Giles County now, but he was down there for
That sounds right. I was there. I'm also good friends with Kari Blasingame, who played football and also played baseball. He was our center fielder, played a linebacker and running back, went to Vandy, played linebacker, running back, fullback, now the fullback with the Bears. Kari and I that's my guy right there. Will Ignat, he's much younger than me. He was in my sister's grade, as he was a freshman when I was a senior, but Will's mom and my mom are best of friends, and Will and I are close as well. So those are my people right there. I say
Awesome.
I'm from Huntsville. My dad was an Army brat, or I'm an Army brat. My dad was in the military. He was at Redstone there in the Huntsville area. And so I finished up my high school years at Buckhorn, went to Calhoun for 2 years, and then up to UT, transferred, and the rest is history.
There you go. Ben McKee of GoVols247.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Always appreciate him sharing his knowledge with us. And you say you're in football camp. We won't get into it at this point, but we will be swinging back to you to see what's up with Nico and the boys. So keep your phone on.
Absolutely. Nico's the real deal. I think this team is the real deal. So plenty to discuss, and look forward to discussing the football team with y'all in the future, and hope y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks, Ben. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Hey, when we come back to the weekend update edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we'll talk a little NFL. So stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
We continue with the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. And last night, Wade, we got some football. Didn't get the full 60 minutes, but we got some football as the Bears and the Texans teed it up in Canton ahead of this week's NFL induction, Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. And one of the things that I was kind of intrigued by was seeing the new kickoff rules in play. And I guess maybe I just wasn't smart enough to really know what I was looking at. It obviously, it looks different, and it feels like it's going to open up some things in the return game, but I'm probably just not smart enough schematics wise to know what the full impact of the new rule will be on the return game. What have you been able to glean from what you saw there and what you saw in the UFL and that kind of thing as far as that goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of folks were tuned in. I know I was. It sounds like you were, specifically for that reason last night. I mean, yeah, football's back, which is obviously good, and just warms the heart and soul. But yeah, tuning in for that. And I kind of tuned in maybe late first quarter into halftime, essentially. And there were a few kickoffs, and I tried to focus as best I could. I still really don't know or don't have an opinion, I guess, on kind of where things sit. And so I was very excited to see it. I know I could go online and, just look at the highlights from the other league and their games and probably get at least a decent picture. But where's the fun in that? I mean, you want to see the NFL guys doing it. And so it was interesting last night. There's a couple different parameters kind of involved. And I've read some reports that, you're not even necessarily worried about putting a kick returner back there, but maybe who is your best guy that's good in the open field.
Right.
And so that's where maybe we get, like we saw the reports, that Justin Fields was taking kickoffs out of Steelers mini camp a couple months ago. I mean, this could go a number of different ways. I think it will be exciting. It sounds like it is at a minimum, obviously, for this 1 year, and they're going to maybe revisit it going forward. But I think if nothing else, all it takes is one or two big plays. And like Terry so eloquently put the other day, Terry McCormick, who joined us, I mean, you're going to watch the kickoff now, whereas in years past, you probably weren't watching the kickoff much at all.
Yeah, I think this past season was a league low in returns, and so I think they're trying to bring back that part of the game. A record low returns last year, but of 8 kickoffs last night, none of them came back past the 32. So I don't know. Maybe they were really being vanilla with it last night, though, as well. I mean, it's hard to say what D'Amico Ryans and whoever the Bears coach is were doing as far as that goes. But, like you said, I think you're trying to kind of revitalize that part of the game. And last night wasn't necessarily a step in that direction. So I think it'll be interesting to continue to keep an eye on as the preseason evolves to see what happens with that and how teams treat it. And as you said, it might be more of a, who is your best maybe open field playmaker, and maybe that opens it up. I know I went to Williamson County's football media days this past weekend, and Will Hester from Ravenwood was speaking. Chris Rowland is helping them this year, but he still has hopes of getting back into the professional football ranks. And I think he had a couple of returns for touchdowns this spring with the XFL. So, it might be a situation that's built for somebody like that, a one-hole cut and go kind of guy. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see how that evolves. And like you said, if they're just looking at it on a yearly basis, first of all, it's kind of odd to me that the NFL is experimenting with something like that. But I guess anything you can do to make something better, maybe. I don't know.
And the first real reports kind of came out insinuating this change kind of came after the Super Bowl, where I can't remember the exact number, but it was either a record number of low returns in the Super Bowl. There may not even been a single return. Maybe that was the stat, but there was some stat, and it almost felt like a quick little reaction to everybody going crazy, the owners and the league just saying, well, on our biggest stage, we kind of had a bit of a snoozer for a certain time, and it's all about the eyeballs. And so the fact that you are at least going to be tuned in is at a minimum probably a win for the NFL from the business standpoint. And then who knows where it goes, kind of from the competitive standpoint, because I think, probably a little vanilla last night. You're also not putting the absolute best out there. And I think the one or two teams, and I mentioned the Ravens, they'll and somehow inevitably be in there. They're always good at special teams. There will be a couple teams that kind of crack the code on this early, especially. And I think they will use it to their advantage. Maybe not even in talking about returns for touchdowns, but I mean, just even the stats, the advanced stats will tell you. I mean, if you start at the 40 or, at the 35, as opposed to starting at the 20 or 25, I mean, a little in terms of yardage goes a long way. And so that will be the real fascination for me.
Yeah. The game itself, I mean, it was 21-17. The Bears won it. They suspended the game with 3.5 minutes left in the third due to weather, and eventually called it after a 36-minute delay. Neither Caleb Williams nor C.J. Stroud even dressed. It was Brett Rippon throwing for 3 touchdown passes for the Bears, and Davis Mills started for the Texans. So, if you weren't tuning in for the kickoffs, then you may very well have not been tuning in at all, because not a whole lot there to really light your fire as far as that goes.
That was me for sure. I was just like, hurry up and let them score so we can see the kickoff. And they got the weird deal going on where the punter or designated players holding the kick at some point too, which I found interesting. And they kept showing the old clips of guys running out and picking it up. And it took me back, man, old Boise State clips. They used to have the dog that would run out and pick up the tee. I feel like the NFL, missed me with all these rules and stuff. And tell you, if you're going to do that, bring back the dogs that just go out and get the tee, in my opinion.
And bring it back. There you go.
I mean, that's where the real excitement is.
Yeah. We got word late yesterday and have seen confirmation throughout the day today. Titans receiver DeAndre Hopkins is expected to miss some time with a knee injury. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks right now, which would be right around the start of the season. But Wade, given the Titans situation at receiver, is this a situation that maybe they can withstand maybe a little bit better than maybe a lot of other positions? I mean, is it just as simple as elevate Burks at this point? Or, what do you feel like that looks like?
That's a great question, because I'm just curious, how precautionary is this move? And if it's a situation where we're basically going to hold you out, or here's the timetable, and when you come back, you're going to be able to do everything that you were doing previously, D-Hop that is, then maybe not the end of the world. But if it's a situation where even though he's coming back, it's going to be either lingering, kind of like we saw with Joe Burrow last year, where an injury in the preseason kind of just lingers and lingers until about week 6, and then you have to shut him down for the whole season. You certainly hope that's not the case.
Right.
The Titans are, if we're not talking about but maybe one regular season game and then we get him back at full strength, that's obviously the best scenario. But they do have a little depth, and it could be a chance, for either Burks, Westbrook-Akine, somebody of that nature too. If nothing else, get some more reps in these preseason sessions here before everything kind of gets whittled down even further.
It feels like the Titans are in better shape to withstand this type of hit at that position this year than they have been in years past. Again,
now that is a fact.
With bringing in Tyler Boyd, with bringing in Calvin Ridley, and Treylon Burks may not necessarily be where you've wanted him to be, but he gives you a chance, and maybe he continues to come on now in his 3rd year and becomes what you wanted him to be. So, and again, like as you said, Westbrook-Akine has somehow managed to get on the field in important moments for this team since he's been here. So, I mean, you don't necessarily want to sleep on that guy either. So I just feel like you never want to lose a guy the caliber of that, but I feel like the Titans are in better shape to deal with that right now than they have been.
We're very well said, because I'm just sitting there visualizing some of the depth charts. I'm closing my eyes and visualizing the depth charts they produced in years past, and they definitely are in better shape than they have been. I don't know that they're in good enough shape that they're just clicking their heels about this news by any means, but man, they certainly are a lot better off than we've seen in years past. That is for sure.
Over in Carolina, where the results weren't good with Bryce Young as QB1 last year, it looks like Andy Dalton is going to miss some time with a quad injury, so they are looking for a backup, it seems. They only had one other quarterback in camp, undrafted rookie Jack Plummer. So the Panthers will be casting a wide net, and it could snag former Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. It seems that Tannehill is the biggest, most prominent name available at that position right now. So it'll be interesting to see if he winds up over there. But, Blaine Gabbert, Matt Barkley, Trevor Siemian are other names that are being kicked around. And if I'm going to look at those guys, I would certainly look at Tannehill. The only thing is when Dalton gets back, and he's going to get back, it's a quad injury. Then what? So, because you're not going to roll with all 3 of those guys. So,
yeah. And to me, it's kind of that age-old question of what does the ownership want or what does the coaching staff want? Because in a weird way, you don't want to necessarily sign the best guy or go out and get the best guy, because that could potentially bring controversy into the mix. I mean, you see it happen all the time. A backup quarterback comes in and stays hot. I mean, Tom Brady, where you at? And so it's like, so I don't know. It feels like Tannehill is probably in a way too valuable.
Too good?
Yeah, too good. To me, that's what this feels like, especially the fact that at a minimum, you're battling Dalton. And at a maximum, if Bryce Young comes out and lays
might be
a couple
battling Young,
like he did again, I mean, Tannehill is the most equipped of all those names you just mentioned in my mind to go out and produce at his current level.
Yeah. Something to keep an eye on over to the east. Apparently, Wade, Gang Green tried out Jarvis Landry here in the last day or so before deciding to go with a couple of former UFL receivers. Isaiah Winstead and Brandon Smith have been signed by the New York Jets after they tried Jarvis Landry out. Landry, who did not play at all last season, his last year was with the Saints and then the Browns in 2022. So,
yeah, and seems kind of like, ironically, a little bit of the Odell Beckham situation, former LSU teammate there, or alum at least, and it's just like, man, some of these guys have such kind of developed a household name, but man, Father Time can wear you down in a hurry. And you would think this is kind of the opposite of that situation. You would think you maybe would bring in a guy that could give you the best chance at production. And name alone, you would think it would be him, but it sounds like they have, indeed decided to go down a different path.
Yeah. Rather than taking our final break as we look at the show clock, we will roll into our final segment without a break, talk a little Olympics here on Main Street Sports Today to close out the show, close out the week, and we will start with golf over in Paris, where Xander Schauffele looks like he's been on a tear as long as he can avoid anthills.
Anthills.
Anthills. On 13 earlier today, he was off in the rough, and apparently his ball landed on a scrum of ants, for lack of a better phrase. It was an ant pile or whatever you want to call it in their home, so I didn't want to mess with it too much. Apparently he could not get relief from the ant hill as it was a loose impediment. He was allowed to take a tee and try to clean up behind the ball, but that didn't help, and he had to chip out into the fairway, leading to a bogey on the par 413. It was his third bogey in 36 holes, but he's 11 under par going into tomorrow, tied for first with Hideki Matsuyama of Japan and Tommy Fleetwood of Great Britain, going for his second Olympic medal after winning gold in Tokyo. That would be quite the feat. 2 majors and a gold medal in 1 year.
Yeah, that'd be pretty dang stout, as they like to say. And got fresh off the win at the Open. I mean, just keeping the good vibes rolling. Matsuyama, I haven't watched any live coverage yet, but did see a couple clips that Matsuyama was just rolling in terms of his putter, which is kind of a scary sight because that dude, when he gets going, he's just so sneaky. And he'll just sneak up on you on the leaderboard, and it seems like he's done that. On the other end of the spectrum, too, the other guy, Captain America, maybe not so much for Scotty Scheffler because he has not done well. Whether it's this tournament, he's tied for 10th, so I'm not making it sound like, that is a smaller field, but he's not at the bottom of the leaderboard, but he's had some struggles in the Ryder Cup over the years too. And so, I mean, when it comes to perhaps representing Team USA, Scotty is struggling a little bit as he sits, like I said, tied for 10th right now at 6 under.
6 under for Scheffler. Tommy Fleetwood, as we mentioned, is tied at 11 under, shot a 7 under 64 today after going 67 yesterday. So he's putting some pressure on Mr. Schauffele. And
it feels like if Schauffele is going to continue to play well and play on this current run of form he's been on, it will be his tournament to lose. But if he does falter, would not be shocked to see Matsuyama keep things rolling, and Rahm is lurking there. It'd be a wild turnaround for him after a really crummy year thus far if he were to get in there. He's only 2 shots back of those guys.
Something to keep an eye on here over the weekend. Something else to keep an eye on. Wade, we talked about our 3-on-3 teams, both the men and the women, and why are they so bad? And clearly we are not the only ones holding that perception. The women finally won earlier today. They defeated Canada 18-17 on a bucket by who else? Cleveland, Tennessee's Ryan Howard. But that was their first win after previously losing to Australia, Azerbaijan, there we go, and Germany. And the men are 0-4 or were 0-3 coming into today. They lost to Lithuania, Poland, and Serbia, and I'm not sure what they did earlier today. I think they had a game today, and then they have one this evening. But they are not good. And there seems to be some conjecture about how both the rosters are being made up. The women's is selected from a group that attended a training camp in Springfield. So I don't know, maybe it just goes back to who is participating in this or in the selection process or not, because Dylan Travis, Kenyon Berry are two of the four on the men's team, along with Jimmer Fredette, who apparently sustained a groin injury prior to yesterday's game, did not play in that loss, and not sure if he's going to get back or not. But as we were saying, though, it just feels like the U.S. should be better at this than they are.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, that's kind of where all the headlines are gravitating toward, is everybody's kind of scratching their heads. They're like, we're pretty dominant by and large, the women's team, especially at 5-on-5. Mm-hmm. And really, at least at this moment, neither team showing signs of slowing down. So why are we struggling? And I haven't watched enough. I've only seen just clips and social shares, kind of. I don't know. It just, I mean, you can maybe make the case that the team just, obviously, I don't think there's a 3-on-3 circuit in all these countries. I could be wrong, but I mean, you're trying to throw, especially when the fact you're adding in WNBA players, you're trying to throw people from different teams together, playing a kind of a different game entirely. And I don't know how much of the loss of Cam Brink, is to potentially be to blame too, because to me, it seems at its core, I'm not a basketball X's and O's whiz, but I mean, it seems like a high-low type situation, and really having her on your side would certainly seem to be an advantage. So I'm really not sure. I did find this out there. So they won that game, and because of the nature of the game, I guess they played a couple more. So they have even the record. They're now 3-3. So they're on how about this, Mo? They're on a winning streak here. We went from 0-3 to 3-3. And the headline, where's this article come from? This is from SB Nation. It said Ryan Howard's clutch game winner may have just saved USA's 3-on-3 teams chances, basically. So nice. I mean, coming up with the clutch bucket, coming up with the win, maybe getting a little momentum. I mean, maybe just came out sluggish after not that cohesion. Like I said, maybe it just wasn't there. I don't know. It's kind of a head scratcher.
We talked about Chase Budinger, the former Arizona men's basketball standout, who is now participating in beach volleyball along with Miles Evans for Team USA. Well, they lost to the Spanish duo of Pablo Herrera and Adrian Gavira earlier today. So they finished pool play at 1-2. They are third in their pool. But they've still got a chance, Wade. 6 pool winners and runners-up, and the top 2 third-place teams will go on. So they are still in the hunt to advance. Apparently, the top 2 third-place teams advance to the knockout stage, as do the winners in the lucky loser bracket. So I guess everybody that doesn't advance goes into a bracket and plays for 2 spots, and that's where Budinger and Evans will be. So they will play tomorrow.
Double chance action.
Yeah. So should be interesting. I hear music. That means we are out of time. here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Appreciate y'all tuning in this week. We will be back right here on the same airwaves at 2 o'clock on Monday, bringing you sports topics of local, regional, national, and as long as the Olympics are going on, international impact. So be sure and check us out. We appreciate it. Again, that's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Y'all have a great weekend.